Zhixia, there's no use keeping this news from him. If Lu Jinyan suddenly comes back, he'll find out anyway. In the hospital room, a young woman was speaking to Zhixia. Zhixia was holding a small infant, her figure still full from recently giving birth. Her eyes revealed coldness. Let him come back then. If he really finds out, I'll explain everything to him. Right now I'm just worried he won't be able to handle it and will cause a scene. After all, you all know how much he liked me. He's made scenes many times before. I froze at the hospital room doorway. Yes, I used to like her very much. If there were any men around her, I would immediately drive them away. If she spoke even one sentence to another man, I would ask if she didn't like me anymore. That's true. Everyone knows what he's like. The woman smiled, but the next second her face showed concern. Then will you keep your wedding news from him too? Zhixia kissed the baby in her arms. We'll see when the time comes. Just as she finished speaking, Funan came out of the bathroom with a towel. Zhixia, come wash your face. Oh my Zhixia, you're so lucky to have such a good fiancé. No wonder you chose him. My heart clenched, almost stopping. Funan was once my best friend. Before I went abroad, I asked him to take care of Zhixia. But now, he had become Zhixia's fiancé. I never imagined that the cliché drama plots from TV would happen to me. I suddenly didn't know if I should go in. If I went in, what right did I have to question Zhixia? After all, we were never officially together. A year ago, she only promised me, when you finish your studies and come back, I'll be with you. I took out my phone and clicked on Zhixia's profile picture. She hadn't contacted me for a long time. The last time she messaged was a week ago, asking if I had eaten. I replied that I had and shared an interesting story from abroad. It was about a cat I saw on the street, but she never replied. I sent her a message. Zhixia, what are you doing? Right after I sent it, a phone chimed in the hospital room. She picked it up, glanced at it, didn't reply, and turned off her phone. Her friend sitting beside her saw the message and smiled. Why don't you reply? Zhixia held Funan's hand, gently caressing it, and said softly, There's nothing to reply to. I've always disliked him. If it weren't for the fact that he's my father's adopted son, I wouldn't have played along. Funan has always been the only one I love. Chapter 2. I don't know how I managed to leave the hospital. I only remember stumbling out, bumping into several people along the way. At the entrance, I ran into another friend of Zhixia. She was holding fresh flowers, and a look of surprise appeared in her eyes when she saw me. Lu Jinyan, when did you return to the country? What are you doing here? The two questions made me recall what had happened not long ago. I had just finished a year of studying abroad, so I returned home. After getting off the plane, I came to the hospital because I wasn't feeling well. Coincidentally, I happened to pass by Zhixia's hospital room. I wanted to say something, but didn't know what to say. So I just ran away. After getting into a taxi, I finally realized a cruel fact. The person I loved no longer belonged to me. She had deceived me, and my best friend had deceived me too. I didn't understand why. At that moment, Zhixia suddenly called. Lu Jinyan, are you back? Her voice was as gentle as always. If I hadn't come back and stumbled upon everything this time, I probably would have continued to be kept in the dark by her. And I'm back. Why didn't you tell me in advance? I could have picked you up. My friend just said she ran into you at the hospital. What are you doing there? Seeing a doctor. For some reason, I didn't want to expose her yet. Perhaps I still had a glimmer of hope, wanting her to tell me everything herself. Then I'll come find you. I'm near the hospital too. Shortly after, Zhixia's car stopped steadily in front of me. She had changed out of her hospital gown and put on makeup. She got out of the car and noticed me observing her. She quickly smiled and said, We haven't seen each other for a year. You're still as handsome as before, but I've gained weight. Lu Jinyan, you won't dislike me, will you? I didn't rush to respond because I noticed the tattoo on her collarbone. FN 1997. 308. These were the initials of Funan's name, followed by his date of birth. A chill ran through my body. Just a year ago, it was Zhixia herself who had made a promise to me. She had acted as if she liked me so much, even taking me to her room and kissing me on the cheek. She smiled and said, Lu Jinyan, We've grown up together. You should know how I feel about you. Don't worry, I'll wait for you to come back. But now she had deceived me. I won't. Hearing my response, she breathed a sigh of relief. That's good. Let me take you to eat first to welcome you back. Chapter 3. After getting in the car, I saw a man's shirt and a baby bottle in the back seat. These were left by my friend and her husband when they came to visit me last time, Zhixia hurriedly explained. I remembered what she had said in the hospital room earlier. I didn't understand why she would say she liked me while being with someone else and wanting to have children. I didn't say a word, just looked out the window. Along the way, she kept talking to me, mostly asking how I'd been this past year. I barely listened because I didn't want to hear these things. I wanted to hear her tell me everything herself. Because I had a bit of a cold, I wanted to get some tissue to wipe my nose. I opened the car's storage compartment and saw an elegantly packaged box of tissues inside. Just as I was about to take it, Zhixia stopped me. Use the tissues in that bag next to you. Those are scented. I remember you like scented tissues. I was stunned. I don't like using scented tissues at all. Because every time I use them, I sneeze. Once when she saw me sneeze, she even said to me, I'll remember in the future that you can't use scented tissues. I withdrew my hand and stared intently at the beautifully packaged tissues. I suddenly remembered seeing these tissues online. They were quite expensive and suitable for babies. So she was reluctant to let me use them. I found it laughable. I don't like using scented tissues. What's wrong? You used to like scented ones. Zhixia hadn't realized something was off. I didn't want to say anything, so I closed my eyes and pretended to sleep. After arriving at the restaurant, Zhixia ordered 3 dishes. Eat more. You must be tired from just getting back. I looked at the dishes on the table, unable to start eating, because every dish had celery in it. I never liked eating celery. She used to remember that I didn't like celery and would always pick it out for me. She didn't notice my expression and kept eating while saying, By the way, why are you back now? Aren't you still in school? She had forgotten everything. Forgotten the foods I don't like, forgotten the tissues I don't use. Now she's also forgotten the promise she made to me back then. I picked up a piece of beef with celery and forced myself to eat it. I've graduated. Before I could finish speaking, her phone on the table suddenly rang. The name flashing on the screen was husband. A flash of panic crossed her eyes as she quickly picked up the phone and answered, constantly lowering the volume. I don't know what was said on the other end, but she responded, I'll be right back. After hanging up, she looked at me and said, My friend has a problem. I need to go for a bit. Lu Jinyan, please eat by yourself, okay? I'll throw you a proper welcome party tomorrow. Before I could respond, she had already grabbed her bag and left. Watching her retreating figure, my heart felt as if it had been pierced by a sword. This past year, I had been counting the days, looking forward to returning home and being with her. But now everything was gone. Her promises to me had dissipated like bubbles. Chapter 4. I was adopted by the Su family when I was 10 years old. My father and Mr. Su were good friends. He had cancer at the time and entrusted me to Mr. Su. When I first arrived at the Su family, everyone except Mr. Su treated me poorly. Because I was adopted, the nannies and Mrs. Su felt they didn't need to respect me. I could only live cautiously in the Su household. Every day, I didn't dare eat too much, and I didn't dare ask for pocket money for school. I remember once I hadn't eaten for a day and snuck into the kitchen at midnight to find food. A nanny discovered me and scolded me, but Zhixia suddenly came back and helped me. She said, Who gave you the audacity to treat the young master like this? That was the first time I saw her. Later I learned that she was the eldest daughter of the Su family, 6 years older than me, already in high school. After that, she would come back every day, and with her around, no one dared to bully me. She always said, Lu Jinyan, I will protect you. Then on the day I became an adult, she barged into my room, drunk. She kissed me first. She said she wanted to be my wife. So I've always been thinking about marrying her. As I was thinking about this, I received a WeChat message from Funan. Have you returned to the country? I have something to tell you. Zhixia and I already have a child, and we're getting married next month. Usually, he would pretend and say he was taking good care of Zhixia for me. At this moment, He completely dropped the act. Chapter 5. If it were before, I definitely would have gone to make a scene with Zhixia. Because in my heart, I always remembered what she said to me on the day I came of age. I thought she liked me. Every time after I made a scene, she wouldn't get close to other men around her. But this time, I don't want to make a scene anymore. Because I feel so tired. I turned off my phone and went to stay at a hotel. Then I sent a WeChat message to a talent scout who had contacted me before. I told him I was willing to become a singer now. Previously, when I was abroad, he had taken an interest in me and kept inviting me to his company. He said I had a natural talent for singing and would definitely become a hit. But I had always been thinking about Zhixia, so I refused. He quickly replied, "You've finally come around, so when are you coming back?" I thought for a moment. This return was very sudden. I had originally wanted to give Zhixia a surprise, but she ended up giving me such a big surprise instead. I had planned to go back to the Su family today to see Mr. Su, but now I wasn't in the mood. After all, he had raised me for so many years, so I still decided to go back and see him. So I told the talent scout I'd return in 3 days. The next day, I prepared to go back to the Su family. But Zhixia contacted me first. She said she was holding a welcome dinner for me at the club and would come to pick me up soon. Originally, I wanted to confront her directly and not go, but I thought it wouldn't be good if Mr. Su found out that way. Before leaving, I still tried to avoid causing trouble, so I gave her my address. She quickly came to pick me up and took me to the club, but she didn't go in with me. Instead, she said, "You go in first, I still need to pick up someone else." Chapter 6. After entering the private room, the previously noisy atmosphere instantly fell silent, with everyone looking at me strangely. Someone whispered, "Why is he here?" Zhixia already said that while this is supposedly his welcome dinner, it's actually to celebrate her having a baby. Though their voices were quiet, my hearing had always been good, and I heard everything clearly. "Jinyan, come sit here." One of my friends suddenly called out to me. He, Funan, and I were all classmates, and we used to be quite close. Now it seemed obvious that he also knew about Funan and Zhixia. But in all our communications over the past year, he never once told me. I suppressed my emotions and walked over to sit down. Shortly after, Zhixia arrived with Funan following behind her. Seeing them, everyone became animated. Some offered gifts, others brought flowers. Zhixia hurriedly said, "Please stop. You should give these to Lu Jinyan. He's today's guest of honor." At these words, I noticed Funan shooting me a fierce glare. Everyone had been keeping secrets from me, treating me like a fool. We used to be so close, and they even said Zhixia and I would definitely end up together. The emotions in my chest began to surge, and I got up and went straight to the bathroom. I washed my face with cold water, and as I looked up, I saw Funan in the mirror. "You saw the message I sent you yesterday. Lu Jinyan, Zhixia doesn't love you anymore. Let her go. Given how close we used to be, can't you just let us be happy?" Just as I was about to respond, he suddenly pulled out a knife and violently slashed his own wrist. Blood immediately gushed out as he dropped the knife to the floor, looking at me with a pitiful expression. "Jinyan, Zhixia and I are truly in love. Please don't hurt us." Just as he finished speaking, Zhixia walked in. Chapter 7. "Lu Jinyan, have you gone mad?" Zhixia rushed over, shoving me away forcefully while supporting Funan. "I'm sorry, Zhixia. It's all my fault. Earlier, Jinyan asked me if I was with you, and I couldn't help but tell him," Funan said weakly, his face pale. Upon hearing this, Zhixia's anger exploded. "Lu Jinyan, how can you be so vicious? So what if I'm with Funan now? Is it any of your business?" I stared at the two people before me in disbelief. One was my once best friend. Before I went abroad, he told me, "Jinyan, don't worry. I'll take good care of Zhixia." The other was the woman I once loved most. Before I left, she said to me, "When you finish your studies and return, I'll be with you." But they both deceived me. Now I even suspect they had planned to be together before I left the country. But why? Why did they have to deceive me? If they truly loved each other, couldn't they have just told me earlier? Why did they have to hurt me? "Lu Jinyan, I've tolerated your past behavior, But this time you've hurt Funan. Apologize immediately. I didn't cut him. I looked at Zhixia. She wouldn't have treated me like this before. Now, for Funan's sake, she speaks to me with hostility and no longer trusts me. What are you still trying to deny? I saw it with my own eyes. Zhixia, let it go. I'm fine. Let's go to the hospital first. No, he must apologize to you. I pretended enough this past year. Let's just end all pretenses now. Watching their back and forth, I found it laughable. The two people I once trusted most had both changed. Fine, I will. Funan, I'm sorry. Kneel down and apologize to Funan. He's my fiancé now, and I won't let him be wronged. Zhixia's words completely shattered my heart. I gave a cold laugh and turned to leave. Chapter 8. Someone once told me that promises are the most useless things in this world. What matters most are actual actions. I didn't believe it before, but now I do. I took a taxi to the Su family home, planning to leave after seeing Mr. Su. On the way, I received a video call from Ningyu. Lu Jinyan, look at how beautiful the tulips are by the road. England is so nice. Are you really not coming back? She was my classmate, and during my year as an exchange student in England, she had been pursuing me. I heard she grew up in England since childhood, so her thinking was more open-minded. Every time she pursued me, she would propose marriage. She said, "My mother taught me that if you love someone, you should boldly pursue them right away, or else someone else will take them. I will come back in 3 days." Hearing this, her eyes lit up. When I arrived at the Su house, the maids were wrapping wedding candies. Red wedding decorations were pasted everywhere. "Young master, you're back?" a maid exclaimed in surprise. "Mr. Su was also surprised, pulling me aside to ask why I had returned. I told him I just came back briefly to see him and would leave in a few days. "Won't you stay longer? Your sister is getting married." Mr. Su looked at me with a beaming smile. He didn't know that I loved Zhixia. "No need, my studies are quite busy." "All right then," he sighed. "By the way, your sister gave birth to a daughter 3 days ago. I wanted to tell you earlier, but your sister said you were too busy with studies and didn't want to disturb you." He didn't know that Zhixia deliberately kept it from me, because she was afraid I would make a scene. I smiled. "Then please help me tell Sister Zhixia to take care of herself after giving birth." Of course, of course. And your sister's husband, who's your best friend? It's no wonder he became friends with you. He's honest and hardworking like you, and he treats your sister very well. The day your sister gave birth, he cried so much. That's why your sister loves him deeply and immediately told me she wanted to marry him. Hearing these words was like knives stabbing into my heart, but it didn't hurt as much anymore. I loved Zhixia for 10 years, yet it took less than 10 days to let her go. Just as I was about to respond, Zhixia and Fu Nan suddenly returned. Fu Nan's arm wound was bandaged, and he was holding the baby. Zhixia gave me a cold look and went into the room with Fu Nan without saying a word. "Hey, why didn't this child even say hello? Weren't you two the closest before?" Hearing Mr. Su's words, I remembered the past. Zhixia and I had always been very close. She would secretly take me for late-night snacks, buy me a phone with her allowance. She even gave me a car the year I got into university. She said then, "Lu Jinyan, I don't want others to look down on you, so I'll make sure you have everything." Everything she did for me clearly showed how much she loved me. So I don't understand, did just 1 year away make her stop loving me? Or did she never love me at all? See my silence, mister. Su tried to smooth things over by offering to show me Zhixia's baby. Chapter 9. Walking into the room, Fu Nan was smiling while soothing the baby with Zhixia. When Zhixia saw me and her father, she immediately stopped smiling. Fu Nan greeted her father. "Jinyan, come look at your sister's daughter. Isn't she adorable?" I followed her father to take a look. The baby lying in the crib had fair skin and big eyes, truly adorable. I remembered Zhixia once told me, "Lu Jinyan, I really want a daughter. If we end up together, I definitely want to have a daughter." But now, she had a daughter with someone else. I noticed Zhixia looking at me, so I smiled and asked, "Sister Zhixia, what's the baby's name?" "Fu Kaisen." Zhixia said she hopes she'll be happy her whole life. That's why we chose this name. Because long ago, Zhixia told me, in the future, we'll name our daughter Lu Kaisen. It means she'll be happy her whole life. I suddenly felt the irony. Not wanting to stay any longer, I said I wasn't feeling well and left. I went to the garden to clear my mind. I used to come here whenever I felt sad. Zhixia would always come to keep me company, talk with me, and play flying chess together. Lost in thought, Zhixia suddenly appeared beside me. What's wrong? I found it laughable that she had the nerve to ask me what was wrong. She knew perfectly well. Sister Zhixia, have you forgotten your promises to me? I looked into her eyes. I used to like her so much, but now I felt nothing. She frowned slightly, her voice cold. Those were all jokes. The age gap between us is too big. We're not suitable. I found her so contradictory. If our age gap was too big, wasn't her age gap with Fu Nan also significant? Though Fu Nan is young, he's very mature and responsible. So, Lu Jinyan, stop thinking about me. I don't like you. I sincerely hope we can maintain a good sister-brother relationship. I couldn't believe she used the word sister in front of me. She once said, Lu Jinyan, I don't like you calling me sister. I'm going to be your wife in the future. Take this card. You should understand what I mean. Let's part on good terms. The card in her hand painfully stung my eyes. A cool breeze blew past as I laughed and took the card. Fine, I won't come back anymore. As I turned to leave, she called out, if you have time, you could stay for my wedding before leaving. No need. I don't have time. I left directly. Getting into my car, I took one last look at the house. Zhixia and I had lived here together for over 10 years. We used to love eating fried chicken and playing games in the room. Now in that room, she was smiling and soothing a baby with Fu Nan. Love is a pseudo-proposition. Perhaps only with the right person can one find the answer. Chapter 10. I changed my flight to tomorrow afternoon. In this city, I don't want to stay a minute longer. The next day, as I prepared to leave, I discovered my lucky charm was missing. It was given to me by my father and meant a lot to me. I thought I might have dropped it at the club, so I went back there. I was going to look in yesterday's private room, but before I could open the door, I heard Zhixia's voice. You all know how much Lu Jinyan likes me. On the wedding day, he'll definitely cause a scene. I'll need to figure out how to keep him from making trouble. But Zhixia, yesterday I saw Lu Jinyan post on social media saying he won't come back anymore. Yes, I did post that. Said I would never come back. Zhixia laughed. He posted that deliberately for me to see, wanting me to comfort him. But I won't. He's just throwing a childish tantrum. In her eyes, I guess I'll always be just a child. Perhaps we really weren't meant for each other. I didn't want to see her, so I didn't go in to look for the charm. Instead, I messaged another friend to help me find it later. After boarding the plane, I didn't feel so bad anymore. I must have finally let go of Zhixia. I won't love her anymore. After landing, Ningyu came to pick me up. She ran over and gave me a big hug. It's so good to have you back. Let's go eat. I just got my driver's license. I can drive you. She's such a strong and cheerful girl. Before this, I kept pushing her away, rejecting her, but she never stopped pursuing me. I really admire her for that. In the car, she kept chattering. There are unscented tissues I bought specially for you in the glove compartment. When we went to eat, she told the server in advance not to add celery to any dishes. I was surprised she knew I didn't like celery and that I preferred unscented tissues. Seeing me staring at her, she smiled and asked, "Why do you keep looking at me?" "Nothing. I feel like you're thinking about something. Are you thinking I'm pretty enough to marry?" Hearing my response, she jumped up from her chair, staring at me with wide eyes. "What? What did you say?" I said, You're willing to marry me?" "Yes." "Oh my God. Am I dreaming?" She rushed over to hug me. Before this, I was too fixated on love, believing I could only be with someone I loved. But now I think compatibility is what matters most. Ningyu makes me happy, and she loves singing just like me. That's compatibility. Soon, Ningyu and I got engaged and set a wedding date. I went with her to buy rings and choose a wedding dress. She looked very happy and took photos to send to someone. "This is my cousin. We're very close." I told her I finally got the person I love. "Lu Jinyan, We'll be good together in the future, right? I ruffled her hair. Of course we will. After doing all this, I went to find that talent scout from before and join their company. Because of my musical background, I quickly released my first original song. Ningyu even shared it on Weibo, telling everyone it was her husband's song. On Zhixia's wedding day, I didn't go back. Sue's father called and asked me to come, but I told him I was getting married too and was very busy lately. He was surprised and asked who the girl was. I didn't tell him, just invited him to attend the wedding when the time came. Just after hanging up, I received a call from my friend. I had asked him earlier to help me find the safety amulet. The safety amulet is with Zhixia. I want to get it for you today, but she said you should come get it yourself. Hearing my friend's words, I thought Zhixia was being very strange. She was the one who gave me money and told me not to come back. Why now does she want me to come back for the amulet? Is she there now? Can you put her on the phone? Soon, Zhixia's voice came through. You're not coming to my wedding today? I've already left and won't be coming back again. I said softly, please give the amulet to my friend, or mail it to me. She paused, then spoke. It's such a valuable item. I'd feel better if you came to get it yourself in case it gets lost. Sister Zhixia, you were the one who told me not to come back before. Besides, the amulet is mine, so it's my problem if it gets lost. So please give it to my friend. There was sudden silence on the other end. Until I heard Fu Nin calling her to enter for the wedding, she finally spoke. Come get it yourself. Then she hung up. I had no choice but to ask my friend to go home first. I really didn't understand why Zhixia insisted I come back in person to get it. Chapter 12. After that, Ningyu and I were busy with wedding preparations. We didn't pay much attention to domestic affairs. About a month passed, and I received a call from Zhixia's friend. Jinyan, Zhixia is holding a full-month celebration for her baby tomorrow. Do you want to come back and see? I didn't know why she would ask me. After all, she knew that Zhixia and I had fallen out. I'm not going back. I was about to hang up after saying that. Suddenly, Zhixia's voice appeared on the other end of the phone. Lu Jinyan, have you been very busy lately? You're not even coming to your niece's full-month celebration? Sister Zhixia, I think you're really conflicted. You told me not to come back. I promised not to return. And now you're asking why I'm not attending, while still keeping my safety charm with you. What exactly are you thinking? Zhixia fell silent, not answering my question, and directly hung up the phone. I also blocked this number. I didn't want to have any more contact with them. I went to the company for a while because my recent songs were popular and I had earned quite a bit of money. He discussed future work plans with me. The boss also said that one of my fans had quietly given a lot of money to support my songs. I didn't know who this was, but I felt quite grateful to her. Then I went back home, where Ningyu had already prepared dinner and was waiting for me. She smiled and said, "Come eat quickly." "Oh, and in a couple of days, my cousin is coming to visit me. We'll eat out then." I nodded without asking much. But when her cousin came, I never expected it would be Zhixia. She saw me and froze in place. I was stunned too. After not seeing each other for months, she had gained some weight. Probably because she had given birth, her figure hadn't recovered yet. Sister Zhixia, this is the boyfriend I told you about. His name is Lu Jinyan, and I'm about to marry him. Ningyu pulled me as she spoke to her. With a thud, her bag suddenly fell to the ground. When did you two meet? Ningyu hadn't realized anything was wrong and smiled. Lu Jinyan and I are classmates. You don't know, but he was so hard to pursue. It took a year before he agreed. He said he had someone he liked, but it's good that I persisted. In the end, he agreed to marry me. Zhixia stared at me intently, not saying another word. Throughout the entire meal, she didn't speak again. Ningyu kept putting food on my plate. There was one dish where the waiter had added celery. She immediately became displeased. "Waiter, didn't we say no celery? My boyfriend doesn't like to eat celery." Hearing this, Zhixia suddenly looked up at me. "Didn't you eat it before?" I ignored her and only said to Ningyu, "Baby, how did you know I don't like to eat celery?" "Before, every time you ate at school, you always reminded the staff not to add celery. That's how I knew you didn't like it." Actually, Su Zhixia knew I didn't like to eat it. She had just forgotten. Su Zhixia didn't speak again. I didn't know what she was thinking. Chapter 14. In the evening, Ningyu brought Su Zhixia to our home. She let her stay in the guest bedroom. Ningyu kept telling her about our marriage plans. Su Zhixia's expression wasn't pleasant, and she said she wanted to rest before going into the room. Only then did I have the chance to ask Ningyu, "How is Su Zhixia your cousin?" "She always has been. I've just been abroad, so I haven't visited." "Then you also knew about me and her." "Of course I knew." She laughed cheerfully. "Why else do you think I invited her to visit? I wanted her to know that you're with me now, to make her regret leaving you. Lu Jinyan, you're very important to me. I won't allow anyone to look down on you. Aren't you afraid something might happen between us?" "I'm not afraid. I like you, and I understand your character." Her words warmed my heart, and I held her tightly. The next day, Ningyu went out to buy breakfast. Su Zhixia came to my room. "You're deliberately trying to upset me, aren't you?" "Mm." She laughed. "Lu Jinyan, can you stop playing these little games? I won't fall for you again." "I don't understand what you're talking about." I looked at her, thinking she was acting crazy. "Lu Jinyan, you didn't come to my wedding. You didn't come to my child's full-month celebration. And now you're deliberately letting me know you're getting married. Isn't it just to upset me?" "Not bad. Quite clever. Now you know to try other methods." She spoke while laughing. "But these methods won't work on me." I suddenly laughed. "Sister Zhixia, did you take the wrong medicine? Ningyu and I are truly in love. Before this, I didn't know you were her cousin." "You, Lu Jinyan, didn't you used to like me so much?" "As you said, that was in the past. I don't like you anymore." "Oh right, since you're here, return my safety amulet to me." She stiffened, took it out of her bag, and threw it at me. "It's good that you don't like me anymore. This way I won't worry about you disturbing me." Just as she finished speaking, Ningyu returned. In front of her, I gave the safety amulet to Ningyu. "My father said to give it to the person I love most so both of us can be safe and sound." I had originally planned to give it to Su Zhixia. Fortunately, I discovered in time that she wasn't worth it. Ningyu happily accepted it, while Su Zhixia's face turned extremely cold. She got up and left immediately. Chapter 15. I thought Su Zhixia would leave just like that. Unexpectedly, she came to my company to find me. The first thing she said was, "I'm your fan. I've tipped you a lot of money." I never expected it would be her. But why did she tip me? "Then thank you, Sister Zhixia." My words made her face darken. She hesitated for a few seconds before speaking again. "I'm planning to divorce Fu Nan. He despises how my figure has changed. I think if it were you, you definitely wouldn't despise me." I looked at her strangely. "So why are you telling me all this?" She bit her lip and said with lowered head, "I just wanted to say you have a chance now. You don't need to be angry with me anymore. Break up with Ningyu. I'll fulfill my previous promise to you. Let's be together." Hearing her words, I was not only surprised but found it laughable. Did she think I was a garbage bin? That she could dump trash here anytime? "Sister Zhixia, are you joking?" I said with a laugh. "Ningyu and I are truly in love. We're getting married soon. I don't like you. You're just like a sister to me." Her face gradually turned pale, and she clenched her fists. "Lu Jinyan, what are you pretending for? You clearly like me. I did like you before, but I don't like you anymore." "Sister Zhixia, I sincerely hope you and Fu Nan can stay together well. Go back. Fu Nan is a good man." After saying this, I pushed her out the door. I loved her for 10 years, and before, I truly wanted to give her a home, to make her my wife. Now I truly want to stay away from her. Chapter 16. On the day I married Ningyu, I sang a newly composed song called Eternal Love. It represented that the love between her and me would be eternal. We would never be apart. She smiled at me and said, "Lu Jinyan, I'm willing to marry you, to be with you for life, never leaving or abandoning you." I lowered my head and kissed her. The venue erupted in applause. After letting go of Ningyu, I saw Mr. Su and Su Zhixia in the audience. Her eyes were red, tears streaming down her face. I smiled and picked up the microphone. "Today, my dear sister has also come to attend my wedding. I'm very happy. and I wish her and her husband lasting happiness." As soon as I finished speaking, she cried even harder. I took Ningyu's hand and whispered to her, "Wife, I love you." At that moment, I truly felt happy.